Everybody, once again, the section is currently on the recording, and today we're going to be starting with introduction to SCCM. We have quite a number of things to cover when it comes to SCCM. It's always one of the major, you know, skills that majority of recruiters now always want to know if people know about it. It doesn't mean that it's a showstopper, just that there are other tools as well that does what SCCM will do in the lives of the Andrew third-party patching and also what Microsoft does. We have example of that like Qualys, Avantis, and what have you. There are a lot of other applications, but majority of organizations uses SCCM. It's always a rare skills. People don't really have it, and that's why jobs requiring it are always top notch in the market, and they pay pretty good. So even though this course is not going to be focusing on the infrastructure side of the business, but I'll try as much as possible to ensure that I cover things that you need to know, even relating to the infrastructure side of the real core infrastructure side of the business, which is not part of this program, but I'm not going to be configuring anything relating to that. But I'm going to be giving you an overview of the entire CCM, and I'm not going to be limiting it to what you have in your course content I shared with you guys, meaning that I'm going to explain the entire environment to you. You know what happens in each of the tabs. If you listen properly when you go for your interviews, even things that have nothing to do with L1 or pretty early L2, you'll be able to answer questions to that, and you can be able to get a good job for yourself, and you can be able to talk with confidence regarding what it is, even though you've not done it. So my style when it comes to SCCM is to give you an overview. Don't see it as being boring, because every information I'm going to be sharing today is going to be extremely important for you guys. So I'll be explaining to you what SCCM is all about. I'm going to be telling you the core features in SCCM. I'm going to be looking at histories of SCCM, when SCCM all started, what we have now, what is inclusive as part of what it is now, that started since last year when additional informations were added or additional functionalities being added to SCCM. So we're also going to be looking at what exactly do we understand by configuration manager. Then we'll be looking at all that things in terms of how do you know SCCM is installed on a particular machine, when software is being deployed through SCCM, where do you see it, what kind of procedures is available, in terms of software deployment, in terms of update deployment. So we'll be looking at that. So when I explain all that to you and what really happened to the word SCCM, because in the real world now, it's no longer called SCCM, it's now called Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager because of the inclusion of other features. So we're going to be looking at all that, and I'm going to be showing you the entire environment. I'll run you through each of the environment. So when you see the environment on anybody's computer or at the place of work, you can be able to say this and this is what happened at each of the tabs, and you have a good appreciation of the entire SCCM environment. So what we're going to be doing, like I said, is I'm going to start by giving you explanations, but I'm going to make the floor open for a minute or two. If you have expectations on, you want to ask a question on what your expectations are, what do you think needs to be covered if you're not too sure based on what I've said, you just want to have, detailed information. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for today to really know what this SCCM is all about and why exactly does it come up in any majority of conversations, even during the training and when you hear that people go on the interview. So if you have a question or two on expectations, it is welcome before we then go into it and, kick everything on moving. So the floor is open, please, if you have any questions.
My question is, is SCCM the same thing what they call a Microsoft Endpoint Configuration now, right?
The new name now is called Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. Initially, it was called SCCM, but after the introduction of features like Microsoft Intune, co-management, when it has to talk with the desktop analytical, so a lot of functions have been added now, and the name has changed, from being a regular SCCM to now Endpoint Configuration Manager because of the inclusion of those features I've already mentioned.
Okay, noted.
Yeah.
I like your accent, by the way.
Yeah. Do we have any other question or anything before we start? Anybody?
No question from my side.
I have another one.
Please do.
Okay, I'm sorry if I sound like I'm taking us back. What's the relationship and differences between Microsoft Exchange and Office 365?
Okay, that's not part of this class, but I'm just going to explain that.
Thank you.
When you talked about Exchange, Exchange is just for emailing, but Office 365 is not just for emailing or messaging alone. It comes with other applications like the Word, the Excel, other functionalities. And when it comes to Exchange Online, there's also a features that comes with the cloud now, which is Microsoft Azure. So they're extremely different from one another. The Exchange is for messaging, and Microsoft Office just deal with Office suites with inclusion if you are purchasing those licenses for the applications. So that is it for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, so there is no question, then we have to forge ahead. I'm going to beseech every one of you to please listen carefully, ask questions where it didn't fit. SCCM is something good if you know it. Just try as much as possible to listen. And please never miss the class. If you miss the class for one reason or the other, ensure you go through, the slide and ask questions where needed. So, like I said, SCCM now is referred to as what we call Microsoft Endpoint Manager Configuration Manager, or you say Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, which has an acronym of what we call MECM. Okay, and it can also be referred to as Config Manager. We'll also have a kind of acronyms called CONFIGMGR. Anytime you see that, it means Configuration Manager. So sometimes you would see an acronym that people will write MEM CM, just like what I mentioned now, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, Configuration Manager. So it depends on how exactly it is written and who exactly is writing it. Microsoft SCCM can also be referred to as System Management Server. That is the name that it was originally known with. So before the word SCCM itself came into being, the first thing that came into being is what we called the SMS. Like I said, it is called System Management Server, and this came into being in 1994. So before we go into the history of SCCM, we want to look at what exactly can you do with SCCM. Now, don't get it carried away. Most times when you're talking to even professionals in the field, they might not have gotten themselves used to the new name of Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. They might still be using the word SCCM. So don't get it twisted when you're talking to people and they don't seem to understand the acronyms or the word that is coming out from your mouth. Just try as much as possible to go back and say, hey, this is what it means. My current boss also asked me when I used it in one of my documentation, I said, what exactly do you refer to as, MEMCM? And I have to make him understand that this is what the name is. So when you see people, doesn't really mean that they don't know. It's just that they might not have gotten themselves used to that acronym. Now, the word SCCM, basically what is useful is that it's a system management software, okay, products developed by Microsoft for managing large group of computers that run different operating systems, which ranges from Windows NT, Windows Embedded, Mac OS, Linux, and Unix, as well as Windows phones. When you're talking about Windows phones, we're talking about the Symbians, we're talking about the iOS, we're talking about the Android phones. All these can actually be managed within SCCM. And Configuration Manager provide what we call a remote connection, patch management, software distribution, operating system deployment, network access protection, and hardware and software inventory. So what I'm saying in all essence is that every system within your organization, every users within your organizations can be managed within the SCCM platform. Now, what functionalities of what you can manage is not limited to a single operating system. However, you can manage multiple operating systems depending on the configuration and the business requirement. So your office requirement or business requirement is the one that will define what exactly you are supposed to do. Now, when it comes to configurations, when it comes to infrastructures within SCCM, now demands come into play one after the other that changes the complexity of the entire environment. So when you start at first, your information or what you're monitoring might actually be limited. Now, you guys would have seen when I was talking about, I'm going to take each of those things I've mentioned one after the other. Number one is that you will realize that before we started talking about SCCM, we spoke about remote desktop management, where you remote into another computer using the Rdp and you can able to do whatever you want to do. Now, SCCM has a functionality that gives you two things. Number one is that it allows you to be able to RDP into a client machine or a server machine to be able to troubleshoot or do whatever you want to do. Another one is that it allows you to do what we call a remote control. And what happens, what's the difference between a remote control and a remote desktop, management? Now, the difference is that in a remote control, the user sees what exactly you're doing. In RDP, the user does not see because it's going to end the section of the user. That's why you see anytime you're out to RDP into another machine, it's going to say that somebody is trying to log into that machine, and you should allow the person or you decline the person. For a remote desktop, the person will also have that opportunity to be able to allow such functionality to occur or decline such functionality, but they have a clear picture of what exactly you're doing. So that's the difference between the remote control and also the remote desktop, protocol or management that we use. Now, another thing is what we call patch management. I know quite a number of people that do a job called cloud management. Fazel, I see that your hand is up. Do you want to ask a question? Fazel.
Yes, I think you explained it the other way around, RDP and remote control. Can you explain it again?
Okay, what I just said is that there's a difference between, these are one of the features or additional features that come with SCCM. Okay, and what I'm saying in all essence is that when it comes to you remoting into a client machine, two things can happen. Number one is that you can use what we call a remote control. What a remote control does is that it allows you to remote into a particular system. However, when the user accepts that you can connect to their computer, they see everything you're doing. And you will realize that in one of your troubleshooting questions, that one of your troubleshooting sections that we did together, and the user was working and you waited for them, and by the time they finish, you're working while the user is using the computer. That's what we call a remote control. You're taking remote, just like when I use AnyDesk. AnyDesk, when you have a problem, I say, hey, let me use AnyDesk and connect to your computer, or you're using TeamViewer. What you're doing at that point is that you're using what we call a remote control. You are logging into an active section. The user is there, but it allows you to come into the computer and you can use the mouse. While you're using the mouse, the user can take over the mouse and still use the mouse as well. Now, but when it comes to RDP, RDP is going to log out the section of that user, the person that was originally using it. However, based on the configuration that you have in SCCM, we always put as a level 3 or level 4, what we do is that we always put a caveat that says that the user must allow you to go in, so you don't barge into the user's computer. So what that means is that before you can go into that person's computer, the owner of that machine or the current person using that machine needs to approve that you can connect. Because what always happens is that when they want to connect into your machine, they might have sensitive information on their screen, and you want them to either close it or minimize it before you go in. That's why we always put the check and balancing within SCCM and say, hey, always allow the user to allow whoever that wants to remote into the machine, before they can go in. Do you understand now? Fazal, do you understand? Okay, I guess he's not available anymore. So I guess you understand what I just said. Now, the next one is what we call patch management. I have friends that they employ them as just to do patch management, and they are earning $45, $50 an hour. Just patch management is just a single component within SCCM, not the entire of SCCM. They don't even have access to everything that exists in SCCM. What they're doing is that they're just patching. What exactly do we refer to as patch management? What is that?
Wow.
Kyle, you are interfering into our conversations. So what we mean by patch, what's it called? What I just said is a patch management. What patch management does, or the responsibility of a patch manager or patch management, is for you to be able to patch your computers for known common vulnerability exposure. You will be seeing an acronym called CVE. C there means common. V means vulnerability. E means exposure. So what always happens is that month to month, on the second Tuesday of every month, which I've already told you guys times without numbers about this, is that Microsoft always release patches, which you need to patch those computers. Now, one thing is this, apart from patching operating system, you don't patch only operating system, you also patch what we call Microsoft Office. Either Microsoft Office or Microsoft 365. Microsoft also have the functionality that allows you to patch third-party patching. And what do we mean third-party patching? Third-party patchings are patchings that do not relate to Microsoft products. Something like Acrobat, something like Dell BIOS or something like any other application that is not owned strictly by Microsoft are what we regard to as third-party patching. So this third-party patching, that is what it does. You can configure it within SCCM and you can patch them. That's why you see in today's world, you're going to be hearing something like Avanti, you'll be hearing something like Qualys, you'll be hearing different kind of names. And what they will tell you is that they are responsible for third-party patching and they also do Microsoft patching. So a lot of organizations have SCCM and also purchase a third-party solution to be able to take care of every other third-party applications they have in their environment, because Microsoft does not patch the entire software in the world that does not belong to them. There are just few softwares that they take place, that they take care of within their own catalog. Like, trust me when I say this, you can ask around, you can check online. Just patch management, if you know it, you will earn $45 an hour. A minimum you will get as a patch manager is $35 an hour, and you're not doing anything. If the configuration is as simple as anything, the only thing is that you're controlling what goes out, when it goes out, and you're controlling the maintenance window. The major thing that you'll be concerned is that if any of those products is released by Microsoft and it causes issues within your environment, you need to roll it back. So you must have what we call a rollback plan for every patch that you release into the environment. You know this. It's part of what you're doing as this program. You can have a resume for it, and I assure you that you can get a minimum of $35. But worst case scenario, you will get $45. At worst case scenario, you get $35 an hour. Now, when we talk about software distribution, some people are also employed to take care of this, and these are the people that they call either L1 and partly L2. When it comes to software distribution, what do they do? These are the people that create applications. Now, when you have a system of over, let's say anything above 100, and you need to deploy software, it is inappropriate for you to go to each of those 100 computers and start installing one after the other. Even GPO cannot give you accurate information or accurate deployment. GPO works with MSI, and it has to be an MSI and mostly enterprise. Any application that has to do with .exec, which are executable files, are not going to be done within the GPO settings, which you saw when we did installing through GPO in our Active Directory class. So assuming I want to install Google Chrome, for example, the enterprise version on over 1,000 computers, I cannot go to each of these computers and start doing it one after the other. But with SCCM, you can deploy to over thousands of computers within your enterprise from where you are sitting, with either in minutes or in hours, depending on the availability of these computers. It's going to go to those machines and it's going to deploy them as you have directed it to be done. This is where Software Center comes into existence, and when we get there, I'm going to explain what it does to you. So some people are paid to manage the software distribution within the organization, where you test these applications, you create these applications, you distribute these applications, and you also look at applications with issues or different currencies. And when I mean currencies, I mean different versions within your environment. And when you see this, you're going to be responsible to ensure that you varied the entire of this application. We're going to be doing, stuff like this in our practical class as we go on within this course. I'm just giving you an overview of expectations, what you can do within SCCM. Now, the major thing organizations do is what we call operating system deployment. These are part of the reason where you see somebody telling you that are you deploying through the network? And there are different ways at which operating system deployment takes place within SCCM environments and within an organization. One of them happens within the network, meaning that you don't need an ISO file, you don't need a USB to do the deployment. You just need to connect the system to the network. Once that port is enabled, now, what always happens in organization is that the network team or the security team always make sure that not all clients' network ports can allow them to image a computer. And the whole essence is that they don't want users to accidentally upgrade or wipe what is on their computer. Okay, which also comes with configuration within SCCM, is that when a system is joined within SCCM, you can see the SCCM, you cannot re-image that machine unless you remove that machine from SCCM. Now, going back to what I was saying, this is a network imaging or installation that happened through the network. So if for some of you that have gone for interview and they ask you if you have deployed using task sequence, this is where task sequence come into play. You create a task sequence, you distribute this task sequence to what we call the distribution point. Now, this distribution point is responsible to act as a storage that has this file. So when you deploy and user plugs into the network, they download whatever information they want to deploy, they get it from the distribution point, which means that a software distribution or operating system deployment cannot exist if you don't have a distribution point. So this is where they get it. Now, another form of installation, apart from you using a PXE booting, anything coming from the network is what we call PXE booting. That's PXE booting. So always know that when people ask you, what are the methods at which you can install a client operating system? One of them is by ISO, but in a corporate environment, the first one is always through task sequence, where you deploy using a PXE booting. Another form of installation is what we call offline imaging. What happens in offline image is that there's sometimes whereby there might be network problem. Your IT technician, or if you're the one responsible, will be creating what we call a media date task sequence. Now, all the applications, the operating system are all modeled up. It's going to be made available in a stick, which is called USB. Once you put the USB into that machine and you boot through the USB, rather than it just installing the normal operating system that you're aware of, it's going to install the operating system. If you have a wallpaper, it's going to put it there. It's going to do all the major tweaking. It's going to install all the applications. Even if it's 1,000 applications, it's going to install the applications. You don't have to do anything manual. Now, there are some offline imaging that joins automatically to the network. Some does not. I remember I was discussing with Carl yesterday, for instance, and saying, oh, he did imaging. And I was asking, what kind of image did you do? Is it through the network? He said, no, that he has a flash drive. And I explained to him, I said, that is what we call offline imaging, meaning that all the applications, everything exists on the flash drive. But in his own situation, it's just one of those examples I made that they now have to join that system to the network themselves. So it's not predefined to join to the network as part of the functionality that comes with offline image. So that is what operating system deployment is all about. Now, in some instances, when you're talking about operating system deployment, you want to look at a situation whereby I need to upgrade, because it is not only on a fresh computer. A machine might be existing with old currency. And when I mean old currency, I mean old version of operating system. And you want to upgrade it to the latest version. That is what we call an upgrade, which is part of what you should have done as well in your Windows 10, where you upgrade from one version to the other. You might not do it manually because you're not doing SCCM. However, there's a feature in Microsoft which is called a feature update. It is the responsibility of the feature updates to upgrade your current version to the latest version when it comes to Windows 10. So this occurs within the deployment. So you can also say, before I run an upgrade, I want to check the status of all the machines I want to upgrade. Are they ready for this upgrade? Literally, if you want to upgrade a machine and you put the OS and you try to upgrade, it might fail for a lot of reasons. Number one of them might be that there is not enough space on that machine. Number two, a bad issue is that the operating system might have a particular third-party application that is not compatible with the upgrade, and it's going to fail. That is where what we call a compatibility check comes into existence. I'm saying this because it's part of OSD, and when I say OSD, I mean operating system deployment. Now, it's going to check the system for readiness. So by the time you want to do upgrade in your environment, you can be assured of getting a high percentage, a high success rate in terms of that deployment. So please, all what I'm saying is very, very important for your interview. Try as much as possible to cap everything I'm saying. And if you miss any line, listen to the video. If you listen to all I'm going to say today, Even if you have not worked within SCCM, you will get SCCM job because there's no better answer than what I'm giving you now. This is what I do on day-to-day basis. I know in and out about it, and I can do anything with it. So if you listen properly to everything that comes from my mouth today, you go for any interview and they talk about SCCM, you will get the job. Only if they ask you on the critical part when it comes to eye troubleshooting that you might not be aware of. But I will ensure that before the end of the class, I capture everything that you will need to be able to get SCCM job or get a job, not SCCM, but as SCCM functionality that you need to work on. Now, another thing that you can do is what we call network access protection, which means that you can create restrictions, protections on access to each of the computers within your network. Now, the major thing, again, that you want to look at in terms of SCCM that it does is what we call the hardware and the software inventory. Hardware inventory gives you a catalog of every machine within your environment and who is the primary user of that particular machine. So with SCCM, you can be able to see the numbers of all the computers within your Active Directory. Now, one thing I want you to know is that when installing SCCM, there's what we call AD schema that you have to install on your domain controller. Now, when you do this schema, what it does is that it creates a vacuum, it creates a space within your Active Directory to be able to accommodate every information that is going to be on your SCCM. Okay, give that room for it. That's what that is all about. So now with this functionality, when you plug your SCCM, you have to identify that, say, retrieve from this domain controller, and it gives you everything from there. I'm going to be showing you everything on the screen, what I'm saying. So this allows you to be able to articulate for you to know the hardware that exists within what? Within your environment. Then when we talk about software inventory, this takes care of all the softwares that you have. However, because sometimes it is not always give you an accurate result, that is where organizations try to get a software management or software inventory management system to capture every software within the environment. And the whole essence of this software inventory is because corporate organizations pay heavily for what we call licensing. Most times they get what we call a volume license from either Microsoft or any other vendor. So this is how they can know how many systems they've assigned this license to. If you cannot control the number of licenses you have in your environment, or you don't know how many people have this license within your environment, then the major trend or the major problem that we are called is that you might have a wrong positioning of the kind of license that you have in your environment. And this is not good at any point in time. So that is why you see organizations take absolutely conscious of the kind of softwares in their environment and to see if anybody is using unlicensed software within their system. This is a brief about SCCM. Now, before I start going into the core features, I'm going to make the floor open for a minute or two. If there's any question, if there's none, then we can proceed. So the floor is open for anybody that wants to ask a question. Kanishika, are you there? Tezin, are you there?
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you. Fazal, are you there? Usna, are you there?
Yes, I am here.
Usna, are you there?
Hey, Samuel, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, I just want to be sure everybody's there. Big, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes.
Abdul, you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I want Kanishika, you're back. Are you there now?
Yeah, I'm here. My mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I ask a question. I will ask then because you already answered a lot of them, so I'm waiting.
Okay, good. I just want to be. Don't mind me if I'm calling your name to be sure that you're there. It's just that this topic or this course is not what you want to miss. I want everybody to grab. So I'm sorry if you see me calling your name times with that number. I just want to be sure that you're catching up and you understand what we're talking about. I want the best for you guys, so I don't mind me if I call your name. So now, since there's no question so far, we're going to look at what are the core features of Microsoft SCCM. We've talked so much about what we can do in terms of operating OS, the OSD, We've talked in terms of patch management. We've talked about remote control. We've talked about, in that line, we talked about task sequence as well. We talked about software inventory, hardware inventory. But what are the core features? You can be asked in an interview and they say that, what are the core features? And you guys, before I forget, remind me in case I forget. I will give you questions and answers that they ask relating to SCCM interviews. And if you can know that, that's +1 to whatever I'm teaching you now. So it's just going to give you a kind of, a broader, how questions are being asked relating to SCCM. Please remind me. I can share it along with today's video if I remember. If I don't, somebody should just please send me a message so I can share with you guys. So now, when talking about the core features, so one of the core features, sorry, Amibu said he can't hear me. Please reconnect. So when talking about the core features of SCCM, one thing you want to know is what we call a Windows management. And what Windows management does is that it allows you to be able to keep pace with updates to Windows 10. So when you hear those are one, so somebody can ask you, please give us core features of SCCM. What can SCCM do? So one of the things you want to tell them about what SCCM do is that you want to make mention of Windows management and say, this is the only way you can keep what to pace regarding updates relating to what Windows 10. Another core features that come with SCCM is what we call Endpoint Protection. What does this do? This provides you identification and malware protection, meaning that there's always what we call IAM. That's Identity Asset Management, where you want to know to be able to authenticate who and who log into your machine. And it also provides you what we call malware protection, which protects your systems from being attacked by malware. Another core features of SCCM is the reporting side of it. It allows you to be able to present information relating to users, information relating to hardware, information relating to softwares, information relating to applications, and information relating to what we call software updates. Okay, so with this, you'll be able to get more information with respect to that. There is also what we call operating system deployment, as we mentioned the other time, is also a core feature. And what it does is that it allows you to be able to distribute operating system to devices in your enterprise, meaning that regardless of what it is, you can, regardless of the device, so far it has an operating system, you can deploy operating system and you can also upgrade an existing operating system. We've talked about this before, but it's also part of the core features I'm mentioning to you just in case you've been asked in an interview or you've been asked during discussion with someone. Another thing that it does is what we call software update management. And what is this? I make mention of this before. This allows user administration to deliver and manage updates to devices across an enterprise. Like I said, Microsoft release patches. Not just only Microsoft release patches, other vendors also release patches, just that they have different timing. And you already know about when Microsoft release their own patch. So anybody interview you can ask you, when does Microsoft release their patches? And they can also ask you, based on your experience, what is the procedure for you to ensure that this patch is released by Microsoft on the second Tuesday of every month is released into the environment. We'll be dabbling into that when we get into the real configuration and deployment when it comes to SCCM. There's what we call application deployment. I make mention to you that you can deploy the application, meaning that you can create application for, say, Cisco AnyConnect. You can create any application for something like AMP. You can create an application for Microsoft Office 2016, and you deploy this application across every machine, even if it's workstation or servers, and it's going to get deployed to them completely with no issue. You'll also be looking at what we call the health monitoring. And what does this do? The health monitoring shows client activities and health within the console. And also, it alerts users if the health statistics degrade, past a specific level. And this is where you set either a compliance level or you set a threshold and say, when deployment gets to a particular level, when there is a particular threshold on a particular health on this particular machine, or the health of the machine can be anything. You can either be looking at maybe in terms of CPU utilization. You might be looking at in terms of memory utilization. You might be looking at the health of the machine, SCCM agents on the machine, if it's good or not, and you want to set a threshold at some point and say, I want you to trigger an alert and let me know about this statistic. So you'll be able to get all this function. So this is what we refer to as the core features within SCCM. Even though SCCM does a lot of things, but this is the core thing. So if you're being asked at any point in time, you want to tell them this and this in terms of features that I've mentioned above is what SCCM does, even though it can do other additional XYZ, which was part of what I've already mentioned ahead of time. And, you know, before we move into history, like I mentioned before, they can ask you that in your environment, have you been able to manage Mac operating system and Linux operating system within the SCCM environment? The answer is that SCCM, even you might not have done it before, but SCCM has the functionality that allows you to be able to manage, you know, operating systems that are not owned by Microsoft. So they have created different agents that can be installed. So the kind of agents that you install on those operating systems is different from the kind of agents that you can install, you know, on your Windows environment. So it is different completely. Now we understand what SCCM can do in terms of, you know, from its brief discussion, its brief summary, and also in terms of the core features. And now we want to go into history. That, if you remember at the beginning of this, my detail to you guys, I said before the word SCCM, talk less of the word Microsoft Endpoint Manager Configuration Manager. SCCM was formerly known as what we call a system management server. This came to being in 1994. Nobody will ask you about this in interview, but it is always good when you have an appreciation of an environment you want to find yourself working in. So there are significant releases, you know, over the years, ranging from different SMS to SCCM itself, and also ranging to Endpoint Configuration Manager versions. Okay, so now the first one that was released, like I said, by Microsoft is what we call a Systems Management Server 1.0, which was released in 1994. And when it was released, other operating systems were released along with it. And some of the operating system that was released is what we call Windows NT Server, starting from 3.5. Okay, this was an initial release that was targeted on the management of Microsoft software, that's DOS, MS-DOS. Okay, Microsoft DOS, DIX operating system. That was one of the first operating systems before the real GUI come into existence. Okay, it's also what really was released in that section is also Windows for Workgroup. Okay, we have Windows NT. During that time, Macintosh and OS/2 desktops on the Windows NT servers were also released, as well as what we call the NetWare was released during that time, and you also have what we call the LAN Manager and the Parts Work Network was released alongside with the System Management Server 1.0. Afterwards, in 1995, Microsoft released the same thing, the same acronyms, but this one is now version 1.1 as against the 1.0 that was released. So here we have what we call a System Management Server 1.1. And this, like I said, was released in 1995. And the essence why it was released is to able to help customers migrate to Windows 95. You know, before Windows 95, you have your Windows 3.1, you know, operating system. So the essence of the System Management Server 1.1 that was released is to allow users to be able to migrate from the old version to Windows 95. Okay, this is one of the old operating systems for some of you that started computer recently, and you can read about it more on the internet. You can download to get more versions about it. After the SMS 1.1, Microsoft released SMS 1.2, and this was released in 1996. And the feature that comes with this is what we call the remote control. So the remote control came into being in 1996, And this also allows you to be able to do what we call the network, the simple network management protocol. That's the SNMP. And I've already explained to you guys what SNMP does, which collates information from each of the systems, regardless of the venture, regardless of the operating system, and collect all this information and make it available for you to be able to analyze that particular machine. Okay, so this was when this came into existence, and also what was introduced during this version is also the inventory side of the business and the network monitoring capabilities within SCCM. So these are the things that came into being during this period. Okay, and after this, Microsoft forged ahead. And if you see all what I'm saying, you will see that yearly is when Microsoft bring out this versions. But one thing happened when they moved to System Management Server 2.0. There was a big jump from 1996 to 1999. And what happened in this situation is because of, I don't know if any of you remember when they were saying Y2K, there are a lot of operating systems, a lot of computers are no longer going to be compatible. So organizations will continue to run here and scatter to ensure that they are Y2K compliant. So this release that was done in 1999 is to be able to help with the Y2K remediation effort, okay? So that users can be able to what? They can now be able to migrate the operating system and to make them compatible with what we call the Y2K. That's where Windows Millennium came out. I don't know for some of you that have heard about it, but if you have not, I will beseech you to go online and read about Windows Millennium, which people call then, some people will say Windows Me. So I don't know, Kyle might be aware of this because he told me he started computer early as well. So,
Yes.
Okay, good. And Fazel, I guess you should. So, apart from that, after that, the next thing, there was a big jump as well. After the 1999, Microsoft released in 2003. Yeah, if I remember correctly, the new version came out in 2003. It is still the same system management server. And the whole essence of the upgrade that was done or was released then is what? To be able to provide what we call improved stability, reliability, and also software distribution capabilities within the system management server environment. Okay? And after 1993, there was a bigger jump again. Microsoft did not release any other thing to 2007. But that time was when Microsoft first introduced the name SCCM, which is called a System Center Configuration Manager 2007. So be careful on your resume when you tell recruiters or you tell users you've been using SCCM. So they can ask you, when do you start using SCCM? And this can justify if you're lying or not lying, because the year you started using SCCM will tell them approximately what kind of version of SCCM you started working with. Not necessarily that when you start using it, you have to use the current version. You might be using an older version, but they will know. And this also goes with the kind of operating system you will be stating that you've used before. Now, when talking about the SCCM that was released in 2007, the great functionality that comes with it is that it now enhances what we call the support for Windows Vista and Windows Server 2008. Okay, that was when it came out, and those are the things that came along with it. After that, there was a bigger jump. Okay, after 2007, the next one that was released in 2012, and this comes with a significant change. And this one was focusing on application deployment capabilities. This is when application capabilities was introduced, where you can create applications, you can distribute applications, and you can do more than just mere support of remediation or stability or support with Windows Vista. After 2007, there was a bigger jump to 2012. Okay, we call SCCM 2012. A lot of organizations are still using SCCM 2012. Some of them will tell you they are using SCCM 2012 R2. So most of the time from that period, people started aligning SCCM with the operating system that they have installed on their machine. Okay, and this came with a significance, like I said, with applications. That was 2012. Then the next release was done by Microsoft, was done in 2015, additional 3 years, where they released what we call SCCM Configuration Manager 1511. Okay, and the whole essence of this is to support Windows 10 and also new Windows servicing options. And the whole essence of the Windows servicing is to allow you to be able to upgrade within a particular ring, either for what we call the long ring or the short, depending on what procedure you want to use, for upgrading your Windows 10. Okay. After that, the next release now is in 2016. From 2016, okay, Microsoft started releasing 3 releases every year, meaning that based on the name, most times you get the exact month at which that version was released. So we have what we call SCCM 1602. It was released March 11, 2016. It comes with new features which include conditional access for PC. And conditional access is where you set your conditions on what you want the system to meet up with before they can be compliant or what have you, excuse me. So apart from this, you have functionality of what we call the Office 365 update management, because we all know the Office 365 came way back. I can't remember if it's 2012 or 2013, but I started using, as well in 2013, where it started Office 365 started coming out. So SCCM have that functionality that allows you to be able to update it. And also what came out with it is also a greater management, when it comes to mobile devices and Windows 10. So in same 2016, another release came out in June, precisely June 22. No, sorry, July 22, 2016. And that version is called SCCM 1606. Okay, so this comes with new features as well, which includes support for managing new Windows features like Windows Information Protection and Windows Defender for advanced threat management. And there's a lot of improvements when it comes to integration with Windows storage, for business supporting online and off licensing application. And there are other functionalities beyond what I just mentioned now. Later that year, in November, Microsoft released what we call SCCM 1610, okay, which was released in November 2016. Now, like I told you, from 2016, Microsoft started releasing three versions. In 2017, Microsoft released 3 versions, which is 1702, 1706, and 1710. In 2018, they released 3 versions as well, which is called 1802, 1806, and 1810. Now, in 2019, they released 3 versions as well, which is 1902, 1906, and 1910 in terms of SCCM. But when it got to 1910, that was when the name changed from SCCM, which is called System Center Configuration Manager. The name changed to what we call Endpoint Configuration Manager 1910. And this was released in December in 2019, as against the usual November, which they do release their 3rd one. And they do release in December, most likely majority of the 1810 as well. So after that, they released in 2010 3 versions, but now the name convention is a little bit different, just the same way as I mentioned for 1910. We now have Endpoint Configuration Manager for 2002. We have Endpoint Configuration Manager 2006, and the latest version we have now is Endpoint Configuration Manager 2010. So Microsoft just released in January, I guess January 9th, because I have my SCCM in front of me. January 9th, they released a latest hotfix, okay, for the Endpoint Configuration Manager 2010. Okay, so one thing I want you to know is that SMS, which is called the System Management Server, went through 3 major changes. So all the versions that I've stated now, okay, went through 3 major changes. We have the 1X version of the product, and literally what it does is that it defines the scope of control of the management server in terms of the NT domain, okay, being managed. After Microsoft moved further from the NT versions of servers, that was when we have the 2.X versions that takes care of what's it called, the site paradigm in terms of switching to a group of subnets. to be managed together. Okay, then in this same cadre, you have what we call the SMS 2003, which has to do with when site has the functionality to be able to define one or more Active Directory sites. Okay, those are the major, the three major iterations that it went through. However, the most frequently used features is software deployment in SCCM. So a lot of organizations, while they're using it, some of them don't even do patching regular. Okay, they don't do patching regular, but they do software deployment regular because they pay for licenses. User uses these licenses, and they want to ensure that users have the right software they need at the right time. Okay, and this, like I said, provide the Amiibo is jumping in and out. Okay, this provide installation and upgrade for Windows applications, legacy applications, operating systems across a major enterprise. Okay, so this is all that you can do, in terms of versions and histories, literally. So before I go into Configuration Manager, the floor is open for questions. Any question?
No question.
I have a question, Samuel.
Okay. Yes, please.
So when the Microsoft released new version of SCCM, as you said,
yeah.
So is it like updating, or upgrading automatically, or they do it manually? How it works?
No, they don't upgrade automatically, and the reason is that in an enterprise version, you don't want any service down, and because you also don't know if there might be a need for a reboot or there might be a change. Okay, they don't do it. Most times upgrades, I will need to understand, all the upgrades I've done doesn't come, when it comes to SCCM, doesn't come with a reboot. Okay, but in an enterprise environment, a major thing is important, and it is what we call change management. Before you move from one version to the other, Microsoft will tell you, make it available to you, what they are making corrections to and what they're adding in terms of feature to what you have. Now, you have to weigh this and see, do you guys need it now? Can it wait for later? Your management needs to be carried along about these changes. That is why it is not done automatically. Okay? It just allows you to take your decision. They will make it available. If they release one upgrade now, you don't upgrade. By the time the new one comes out, they'll still make it available for you. By the time the next one comes out, maybe it will be available for you, but it will never do by itself. Do you understand? And each one of them comes with a feature that allow you to be able to run a prerequisite check on your server. And what are the two things that it's going to check? It's going to check your SCCM server, and it's going to check your Sql Server to check if both of them are ready for them to be able to upgrade. Sometimes there's always a warning, but that warning won't stop it from upgrading, but it is something you want to look into to correct it. Some of the warnings might say, hey, if you don't do this, you cannot upgrade. And one of it is reboot. If there's any pending reboots on your Sql Server or a pending reboot on your SCCM server, you might need to reboot it. It's not going to go. So you're going to need to reboot it to clear it before you install it. So there are a lot of check and balancing. That's why it doesn't just upgrade. Like operating system, when you have your feature upgrade, in some instances when things just roll into your computer without your consent, based on a default configuration that comes with the operating system. Do you understand?
Yes, Samuel, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? In the absence of none, we're going to go into what we called Configuration Manager. Okay. Starting in version 19.10, Configuration Manager, like I said, is now part of what we called the Microsoft Endpoint Manager, because now it comes with a group of softwares. So we have the Configuration Manager, you have the Microsoft Intune, you have the Desktop Analytical, and it seems there's one more. I can't. There's what we call autopiloting. So you have these four things coming together, which is the reason why the name changed from Configuration Manager or System Center Configuration Manager to Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager. So the whole essence why it changed is because of additional 3 softwares that was introduced and put together to be one family. So now, if anybody asks you why is it now called Microsoft Endpoint Configuration Manager, it's because it has Configuration Manager is now part of a group of solutions, and you can list the solution to them. One is you have your Intune, which is called Microsoft Intune, that allows you to be able to manage device and also applications. So you're hearing something like MDM and MAM. So for some of you that have done interviews that they ask you such questions and they want to know if you've managed mobile devices or applications. So Microsoft Intune allows you to be able to do that. Now, the desktop analytical allows you to be able to check your readiness as well and give you a statistical representation for your Windows 10 environment. So you can be able to look at where you are, where you want to go, and you can do a lot of reporting when it comes to that. So you can use your Power BI, which is an introduction that comes in an introduction, yes, that comes into SCCM. Because before, what SCCM uses is the normal reporting that relies on what we call the Sql Server reporting software. So now Power BI also comes with SCCM now, and you can plot a lot of that. You can create a lot of dashboards and do a lot of things. And you have what we call the autopiloting that allows you to be able to provision your Windows 10. So you can join them to your domain online, meaning that I can send a laptop to any one of you and give you your credentials because everything has been set up within the Intune environment, and also, a connection with, my cloud distribution point, and it's going to authenticate using either my Azure AD account and platform or on-prem that has been linked together with the cloud to verify your credentials, verify the certificates, ensure that your system is enrolled if you're given the license, and all applications are going to be deployed on your computer without you being in the office environment, which is what every organization are trying to Intune themselves with now. So now, in summary, Microsoft Endpoint Manager is an integrated solution for managing all of your devices. Now, Microsoft brings together Configuration Manager and Intune without a complex migration and with simplified licensing. Okay? This allows you to be able to control, to leverage your existing Configuration Manager investment. So you don't have to say, oh, because there is Endpoint Configuration Manager, my SCCM has to go. No. It allows you to continue on that same investment while taking advantages of the power of the Microsoft Cloud at your own pace. So the whole essence of the change is that your existing infrastructure stands. However, you can now introduce cloud into it. And when you introduce cloud into it, then it makes it much more easier. So the reason why a lot of organizations are going into cloud now is because now users are working from home and they have to use the VPN. It put a major threat in terms of high utilization, bandwidth utilization on their VPN. So why do you want users to continue to run on VPN while pushing a lot of applications? You can reside your VPN for them to use critical services on applications that require their credentials to be authenticated so that they can use corporate owned applications and allow all deployment, either application deployments or software update patching, to go through the cloud. So if they're not on VPN, all these applications will still get deployed to these machines. This is the appreciation that comes with, the Endpoint Configuration Manager, which is far better than the initial environment which we have, which is just the SCCM that has that major configuration manager, where everything you do is local without an integration into the cloud environment. Okay? Before I proceed, do you need additional clarification on anything? Okay, silence is golden. So what I want to explain to you now is let's look in detail, things. Now I make mention of 4 things. Those 4 things are part of the advanced class. For some of you that will be moving into the advanced class, you'll be learning about Microsoft Intune, because that's what companies are using now. They use SCCM, like I said, Intune is just an addendum. Some organizations use Intune without SCCM, and they use it to manage, to do autopiloting, and because with the cloud, you can have your Azure AD, like I've shown you in your AD class, and you can sync everything to be like that, because some organizations, remember that some organizations have infrastructure as a service where they don't have no office, no infrastructure, everything is in the cloud. So those kind of people can decide to do only Microsoft Intune, and they will still provision all their Windows 10 systems and be able to, deploy anything to them with no SCCM. Okay, meaning that they manage everything within their Microsoft Intune environment. It's a plus for you if you know Intune, because that is the future. That is what everybody is migrating into, but it's good for you to have SCCM experience, with it, for organizations that are doing what we call an hybrid solution, which is referred to as core management, where you'll be able to manage both Microsoft configuration and also Intune. Now, in future, I'll be explaining to you what the difference between core management and coexistence, but let's proceed so I don't muddle up a lot of things to you in just one day. Now, Configuration Manager helps you, with some certain system management activities. And one of the core things, there are three major core things that it allows you, that it gives opportunity to your environment. And one of them has to do with increasing IT productivity and efficiency by reducing a manual task and letting you focus on your high value project. Okay? Another benefit again you're looking at maximizing the hardware and software investment. You maximize the investments your organization is having within that line. And the Configuration Manager will empower user productivity by providing the right software at the right time. Just like what I said, a user needs a software, you provision it. The user might be in Africa, the user might be in Asia, the user might be in Middle East, and you might be here. So far, they are either connected through Intune to check to the cloud, or they are using a VPN. You can send the software to them, meaning that you have a corporate-owned devices and you decide to travel to your home country, or you decide to go on vacation to any country. Now, if I push a software to your computer, wherever you might be, if you're on VPN, if there is no Intune, the software will get deployed on your machine. If you are in Intune and I'm pushing using the cloud management gateway, regardless of your location, you're going to get the software. So it has gone beyond from the traditional way where you have to say, oh, let me connect to your computer using AnyDesk, or let me connect to your computer using Microsoft Teams or whatever, TeamViewer, or what any other configuration you want to use to get to the client's computer. You don't have to log into users, because your users might be everywhere, okay? And you want to distribute to them. Regardless of where they are, you want to be able to push software to them. Regardless of where they are, you want to be able to push patches to them. This is the appreciation that comes with SCCM. This is the appreciation that comes with Microsoft Intune. And you will now bet to believe with me that this is the future. If you know everything without knowing part of SCCM, you're missing a lot, because some people will tell you, oh, you don't need it. Okay, tell me. Organizations are moving into this terrain. They need people to manage it. There are few people that have understanding. Don't you see that it's an avenue for you to increase your income? Don't you see it's an avenue for you to leverage the experience you have within the on-prem environment, with the cloud environment? This is opportunity for you to learn a lot of things within either Azure environment or AWS environment or Google Cloud environment. You'll be able to learn as much as you want to. It is something good, something phenomenal. It is something you want to look into and you want to get appreciation for, so that you can be able to support your organization at any point in time when this is needed. Okay? This is why I told you guys, I said, before the SCCM class, try as much as possible, go through all we've done when we did our Windows 10, when we did, Windows Server, when we treated in depth, let me say, complete Active Directory, and also you having appreciation when it comes to virtualization that we treated in our Copter A++, and when it comes to networking, that we did during our Copter network class. No, this gives you the ability to be able to understand, networking, subnets, which you've dealt with, because these are part of the things we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at subnetting, where you can be able to arrange or be able to group computers within locations, okay, to one another, and let them have a site server that feeds them, rather than you just trying to say, oh, how can I manage this, or putting load on a particular site server. So you can create what we call a load balance, okay, within your environment. Okay, that is part of the functionality, part of appreciations you want to look into. Okay, now, like I said, Configuration Manager helps you deliver more effective IT services. Okay, and what I mean by that, I'm telling you that it gives you that ability to be able to do a lot of enablement within your environment, where you could be looking at securing and scaling, deployment of applications, software updating, and operating system. Okay, you're looking at a situation whereby you can have a real-time action, on managing devices. You want to look at when it comes to cloud-powered analytics and management for on-premises and internet-based devices. You want to look at compliance settings management, where you can be able to set a threshold within your organization. You want to be able to say, for my organization to be compliant, we must be able to be at this compliance level. When it comes to patch exercise, to ensure that your enterprise environment is being protected from common vulnerability exposure. Okay, you want to set compliance for Microsoft patches. You want to set compliance for third-party patches, because, like I said, Microsoft environment does not allow you to be able to patch the entire of all third-party software that will be using your environment. That is why organizations try as much as possible to get third-party patching, solutions like Avanti, like Qualys. These are one of the top, and you see that time to time when I'm talking about third-party patching, I've been talking about Avanti, I've been talking about Qualys, because what it does is that it has a kind of a fantastic architecture, which what always happens is that they have their own DMZ, meaning that you don't have to be on your corporate network before you can get patched, even for Microsoft solutions. Now, you don't have to be in a corporate network before you get patched for third-party solutions, and this is what it does. When you set the level of severity within your environment, you can say, when the level of severity is high, I want you to check within the Ivanti server that I have within my premises or in the cloud, to the system to first check the one you have in your environment and see if it has that solution to the vulnerability. Now, if it doesn't have, what always happens is that the on-prem server will communicate with the third-party catalog to be able to download this and patch the system immediately without waiting for the periods which you've set for them to be done, which means that your environment can be well protected. Sometimes your Windows environment might be protected. Vulnerabilities can come from third-party patching. That is why you see the hackers or crackers never, while you're still protecting your environment, they continue to try different avenues to be able to get into your environment. It is because they know that if people within the organization don't follow the right procedures or don't get their system well protected, they are going to get vulnerable. And today, that is why you see that IT security or security analysts or professionals continue to have more jobs. Okay? They continue to have more jobs because it is very important for you to get your environment protected. A lot of organizations are not even ready for clouding. And the reason is that they're not still sure if their environment is ready, when it comes to this attack. They don't know. That's why a lot of organizations are now engaging other third-party applications to them to evaluate the environment and be able to see trends and patterns, within the environment to see if there's any vulnerability or any patterns that, attackers. When I'm talking about attackers, I'm talking about people into a practice of phishing, people into a practice of attacking your environment, to see that the environment is well protected. Okay, that is why you cannot shy away from security. And that is why I remember one of my boss word. He said, one thing, which is also part of my day-to-day life now, number one, is that security comes above everything within your organization. Within your personal life, security is number one. Every other thing comes later, because once you're vulnerable, once your terrain is breached, then you're compromised. And that's why you see a lot of organizations want you to sign a lot of documents to tell them that you understand when it comes to compliances within the organizations. That is why you see there are a lot of policies, there's a lot of regulations that guide you on how you can work and ensure that office devices and also your credentials are well protected. So I don't want to go that much into security. Let's stay focused within our environment of what we're doing now. Okay, and we also want to look at that Microsoft configuration helps you. It gives you a comprehensive management of your servers, your desktop, and your laptops. Okay, you want to look at, you see that it gives you a better appreciation of your environment. That's why SCCM is key. That is why you should have an understanding about it as an infrastructural person. Okay, you might know a lot of things when it comes to database and what have you, but it's always good you understand also that there is a Microsoft solution that allows you to be able to protect your environment. Okay, Now, I will also be looking. We'll also be looking at when it comes to additional functionalities that configuration managers provide to you, which I would bet to tell you that configuration manager extend and work alongside many Microsoft technologies and solutions. An example of what I'm saying is that you will get to know as time goes on that configuration manager integrates with, like I mentioned, Microsoft Intune to co-manage a wide varieties of mobile device platforms. You know, I make mention to you about MDM and MDA when we're talking about mobile device management and mobile application management. It allows integration with what we call a Microsoft Azure to host cloud services to extend your management services. Okay, this is a summary of what I've been saying since we started. It gives you that extended functionality when we're looking at a Windows Server update services, that's WSUS, to manage software updates. So for you to be able to manage software updates within your environment, you need to have a WSUS. Now, I make mention in our Active Directory class, you will remember that we configure WSUS, however, we use GPO to deploy. And I tell you that it is not, okay, a very good approach. It is one of the approaches that was done in the past in terms of managing, okay? But it's not always the good approach. And it comes with a lot of reasons, right? Now, it doesn't give you a good appreciation on managing each of the systems because you have to, you know, you set the time and all, but in terms of management and all, it is poor. SCCM is a beast. It allows you to be able to do these WSUS services, integrating it, allow you to create conditions rather than you creating a lot of filter within your GPO to allow this patching for each of your Windows 10, right? You say either Windows 10 or Windows Server. Now, good functionality when it comes to SCCM is that it will you can gather all your Windows 10 together and you set your patches using automatic deployment through or manual rule to patch them. You can also create for servers, and also you can create for applications like Windows, Microsoft Office 2016, Microsoft Operating System 2010. You can know which machine is part of this. It gives you a better appreciation to understand what is really going on with each of these machines. And if anything fails within the SCCM, it will give you a kind of a brief. Sometimes it comes with a kind of error code. Sometimes it gives you a brief on what happened that did not occur. So you can now go into it and try to look at the issue, then you can correct. It gives you functionality, as a matter of fact, to be able to reinitiate with third-party software to redeploy or rerun that deployment, then people will be able to use it. Now, not going too much into that because we're going to be doing it as the class goes on. It gives you that functionality to be able to have what we call certificate services. Like I said, when you're moving to the cloud, you cannot use a self-sign-on certificate, which is the default that comes. You have to create your own certificate using authority certificates. It's a part of role that comes with new server where you create your own certificates for your organization and you can be able to run within a secure pipe. This is where you use HTTPS rather than the HTTP configuration. Okay. Then it extends services also when we're talking about the Exchange servers and Exchange Online. A lot of people will be saying, oh, why, you know, what's the relationship between Exchange Online or, you know, Exchange Server with SCCM? There's a great functionality. As we go on, you're going to see, but this doesn't cover within this particular course structure, but it comes with the advanced infrastructure engineer class. So we're going to be looking at, you know, like I said, it also has a lot of enablement with a GPO policy. So if you run a lot of GPO policies and tie it along with your SCCM, and this comes in a lot of ways which it can be done. Number one, you can look at SCCM agent remediation, where you can do all this configuration, where you take the SCCM agent software and have it deployed. Okay, you have it all deployed, and the system will go when the system comes up, and probably a lot of policies didn't run because it passes the time that you specify within your client settings that this policy should run. So by the time they're coming up, you can create a GPO with additional configurations that will go into each of the system as startup and trigger each of those policies to ensure that the client agent remain active, you know, and within the SCCM environment. So he also extends services to DNS. He extended services to what we call Windows ADK, which is called the Windows Automatic Deployment Kit. This allows you when you want to run a lot of Windows 10 deployments, your boot software. where the system boots when you're trying to start, and also functionalities relating to what we call the user state migration tool, which the acronym is USMT, right? These allow you to be able to capture user settings before an upgrade occurs, for each of these machines, okay? And, apart from that, it also extends as a kind of enablement into what we call WDS, which is called Windows Deployment Services. Windows Deployment Services is one that allows you, when you're trying to deploy operating systems to client machines. So what always happens is that when you pick the boot, the system, the DHCP server will communicate with your WSUS, okay? Because that it is true that the OS that you already have, that you've created within your SCCM, will now be able to use this service to have a deployment. Now, before the advent of SCCM and why SCCM is available, some people don't have SCCM, but they have what we call a Windows Deployment Services, where they have their own ISO that they have for Windows 10, and they still allow imaging to go through the network. So, one other enablement we'll be looking at is when we're talking about remote desktop and remote assistant, and I've already explained this to you. I'm going to open the floor for a minute or two, then for questions. If there's none, we're going to be looking at Configuration Manager, what it also uses, and we look at other interfaces. Then we can move. We'll take a break, then go into the environment for us to see what happens within that environment of SCCM in terms of what you can do and what you cannot. Okay, so the floor is open. Any questions?
No question from my side.
No question from my side.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yeah, so next thing we want to look at is other things that you can do, with Configuration Manager. And one thing you want to look at is you can do what we call an Active Directory domain services and Azure Active Directory for security when it comes to service locations, configurations, and to discover the users, devices that you want to manage. I told you, I say by the time you have what we call the co-management or coexisting, you can manage all your devices, within Intune environment, and also have it managed within the SCCM environment. So you create that bridge and allow you to be able to do that. Another thing you'll be looking at in terms of what you can do with Configuration Manager is when we come to Microsoft SQL Server, which serves as a distributed change management database. This gives that functionality where you can be able to integrate your SQL Server reporting services. Like I told you, that before now we use a SQL Server reporting services, for reporting. But now with the new with the endpoint configuration manager, you now have the functionality of a Power BI that a lot of people are now trying to use because of dashboards, so they can create a lot of dashboards. Okay, another use that we see that we can have is when you're looking at what we call the site system roles, okay, that extend management functionality and uses a web services of what we call IRS. I believe that you still remember what IRS is all about, because we did this in our Active Directory class. We see how it's configured, we see functionalities, and we're able to create different, web server, which we worked on. So I believe we should still remember that. It also supports what we call a delivery optimization, when we're looking at the Windows low extra delay background transport. It is what we call the LEDBAT, and also functionality relating to background intelligence transfer services, which is called BITS. We're also looking at what we call the branch cache, and also it pairs with other cache technology for you to be able to manage content on your network and between devices. So the last thing that we're going to be talking about in terms of other uses is has to do with for you to be successful with Configuration Manager in your production environment, thorough plans and test this this management feature. Configuration Manager is a powerful management application with the potential to direct effective computer in your organization when you can decide to deploy and manage Configuration Manager, okay, with careful planning and consideration of your business requirements. So like I told you, the majority of what you'll be doing within your SCCM environment always has to do with business requirement. What exactly does the organization want you to do? What is the expectation of what you have? And as you continue to expand, this requirements will continue to change. The business needs will continue to change. And this will now be redefining your architecture that you have within that array. Okay, so what I'll just be looking at now is to tell you what Software Center is all about. Then we can take a break, then we'll come back and do a kind of an overview of the entire environment. So, like I said, a Software Center is an application that is installed, on your computer when Configuration Manager Client is actually installed as on your Windows device. Okay, user will use these software centers, to request and install software that is going to be deployed on their computer. And what am I saying? There are some situations in terms of deployment. There's what we call required and there's what we call available. Now, on the required, when you are deploying software, when you say required, it means that it does not require the indulgence or the approval from the user. The software just go into the computer immediately you deploy it, is installed immediately, which is what we did when we used GPO to install software when we're doing our Windows Server class. Okay, but in SCCM you can create the avenue where you can make the software available, and there are also different legs to that. One of them is that it is available when they need it. Let them go there and install. Another one is when you're trying to control in terms of licensing, the user needs it, fine. One thing you want them to do is that before you can install it, I want you to seek an approval from someone before it will be installed on your computer, which means that there's a control because of license. So when they click on it to install, it gives them that opportunity to be able to request for approval. And once it is approved, that's the only way they can have it installed on their machine. Okay, so that's literally what it does. And, you can do a lot of things when it comes to Software Center. In the Software Center, you can see the list of applications that is installed on your machine. That's one thing. Another thing that you can do is that you can see the software, you can see patches that is released to your machine that is currently installing. And once it's installed, it's going to clear off from there. You'll also be seeing the list of all the applications that is available, and you'll be able to see the status of every software in your system. It also allows you to be able to check your device compliance, which if at any point in time the system does not fall into a compliance stage, there is a trigger that you can trigger, and the system will check and run policies to ensure that your system is compliant. The last one is you have options that you can specify based on the configuration that is done in your client settings on when software can be pushed into your applications, within a business hour. So you can pick at what point and at what more point, and you can specify whatsoever configuration that you want to do. So this comes to, in terms of knowledge sharing, that you need to be aware of what you can do with SCCM at your level, the junior infrastructure section. Okay, but it's an overview of SCCM as a whole. And, so that's just it. And if you have any question, please ask before we go on a break. Then we come back and I give you a tour of the SCCM environment. So any question? The floor is open.
No question for now.
Thank you. Any other person? Any question? Okay, silence is golden. So if there's no question, we're going to go on 50 minutes break. Then we're going to come back. And while doing that, I'm going to stop the recording. Then when we come back, we continue from there.